the unclean.
Welcome back to the channel, everyone. If you're new, I'm the Bloody Mama. In today's video, we'll be taking a break from the historical painting challenges and we'll be doing some sci-fi this time with 30k, not 40k. I don't think I've ever done a Warhammer speed painting challenge on the channel before, but this will be the first non-historical speed painting challenge. If you enjoy it, let me know. Otherwise, I'll do more historicals. The idea behind this video, obviously, get it done quick. I just wanted to paint some more Blood Angels for my 30k army. I don't actually have many 30k Blood Angels, and I just wanted to add on to that. I managed to get a good deal on a Combat Force on eBay, so I thought it'd be good to get a video at least get a video out of it. So with all that being said, let's get into the video. So to start off, the infantry were primed in Mephiston Red, and the Dreadnought and Rhino were primed in Leather Brown. I primed them in Leather Brown because I was going to use chipping medium, but that backfired, so don't worry about it. To start off, I'll be dry brushing the infantry with Wild Rider Red to start with, and then a lighter dry brush of Fire Dragon Bright. If you'd like to see a more in-depth video of how I paint the Blood Angels infantry, then that's already on the channel. So that only took 15 minutes. Wild Rider Red isn't meant to be a drastic change, it's more to keep that Mephiston Red in the recesses. This is where Fire Dragon Bright comes in. This paint can come across quite light, but with the wash that we eventually end up doing, it will darken it down. So I managed to get the infantry all highlighted in just 35 minutes. Now it was time to do the Dreadnought and the Rhino. I decided to use the airbrush for this, just because I wanted a smoother transition, but there's no reason why you couldn't dry brush this on. If you're wondering why the Dreadnought and the Rhino look a bit rough and ready, that is because I was inspired by Night Shift. He's a scale modelling YouTuber. I've always enjoyed weathering minis, but his videos take it to a whole new level. My 30k Blood Angels are themed around the Siege of Terror, so I really wanted to make them look like a last-ditch kind of unit. They didn't have time for those smooth finishes, and they've just rushed them out of the factory, or cheap on-site repairs, and sent them straight to the front lines. If you haven't noticed already, some of the minis are using the old Firstborn Marine bits. I just think they've got so much character. I like adding little stories and characteristics to my minis. It helps break the monotony of army painting. So we're 1 hour in now. My chipping medium decided it didn't want to work, so I was using some caveman techniques to remove the paint. This is just a painful reminder to myself to use chipping medium properly next time. I saw someone talking about using a pencil for chipping their minis. I decided to give that a go. It works to varying effects, to be honest with you. I was quite surprised. But in less than 10 minutes, I just decided that it was just a waste of time and decided to move on. Here are some of those minis I was talking about. And at this stage, I decided that I wanted to get all the metallics done. I'm using Metal and Alchemy's Necro Gold, as well as Lead Belcher. First up is Necro Gold, and I believe 30k Blood Angels should be decked out. So I'm just hitting that Blood Angels iconography as well as shoulder pads, etc. At this stage I was happy with the progress I was making, and we moved on to the Lead Belcher. This was mostly just for the end of bolters, ammo packs and chainsaw teeth. And let's not forget the occasional axe. Army painting can feel like a drag, but once you get a few coats down on the mini, it starts coming together. This is one of them stages. We can really start to see where the mini's going to end up. Although it hasn't been washed or shaded, it's still nice to look at and you can see where we're going with this. I really love this mini, by the way. There's still some details like transfers as well as the Space Marine bodysuits. So let's get that done, starting up with the bodysuits. I also decided to paint in all the straps with the same colour as the bodysuits, purely just to save time. It was now time to add a few more details before the wash. Up first is the hazard stripes. I ended up freehanding these just purely to save time. I've gotten pretty okay at eyeing up hazard stripes. And even where it looks a bit wonky, I just went over it with some Uriel yellow to tidy it up. I also used that yellow to add some little chips into the stripes. The best part about being an Iron Warriors fanboy is you can transition this into any legion. At this stage, I decided it was time to add the Shrieking Grime, but I had made one fatal mistake before doing this. You see, after washing the first mini, I realised that I hadn't added any transfers. So I had to clean up this mini and get the transfers sorted before I could carry on with the rest of them. I decided to use Dark Shrieking Grime on these minis. We'll talk about that later. Time for the transfers. I primarily use decal softener, after applying them with just a bit of water. I used to be a transfer hater, but I think they had a lot of character to the minis, and I think it's always worth doing. So after that unexpected time suck, it's time to apply varnish and then wash the minis in streaking grime. So my original 30k Blood Angels are washed in standard streaking grime. I'll throw some pictures up now, and you'll have to let me know which ones you prefer by the end of the video. There was no time restriction on the previous ones, so as you can see there's a lot more detail added onto it. Actually had time to paint some faces, unlike this set of Marines. But I didn't want to spend too much time on this, I just wanted to add some more Blood Angels into the mix. Full transparency, at this time I did pause the timer and go out for a bit. I left these minis to dry in the sun. Before I got them back on the desk, I gave them a once over with my hairdryer. Luckily, none of them were kidnapped by birds during the interlude, and I think they've come out quite nice. There's a few more details I need to add, like filling in these little slots on the dreadnought, as well as a few other areas. But for the most part, I'm pretty happy with how it's coming on. Obviously, because I used that dark streaking grime, we need to add some colour back into this. Primarily on the metallics. They've really darkened up, and I just think they need to be a bit lighter. This is probably my favourite Marine that came out. I did overdo it with the Fire Dragon Bright, but I think that's the best way to go if I'm to carry on with these minis. But before I carry on with the metallics, I'm using a white ink wash, and then I'll be adding a Tesseract Glow to any eye lenses and any lights on the minis. I thin this down with some mineral spirits, just to help the flow of the ink. At this stage, I realised that I really needed to get the wings painted, so I'm going over with AK's Ivory. The reason why I'm using Ivory is just because it has better coverage than white. I'm a big fan of this Ivory, and I use it as well as a combination of greys to paint any whites on my miniatures. And after a couple of coats of Ivory, the wings are ready for a ink wash. For that, I'll be using Villainy Ink's Ichor of the Damned, and then once that's done, I'll be going over with Tesseract Glow on the eye lenses. I haven't really used inks on the channel, but I think that's time to change. I have used them in the past, and I think they're really easy to use, and they leave a nice finish after. The last time I used Ichor of the Damned was to paint the horses for my Krieg. I'll show them on screen now. As I said before, the inks are much easier to use, and they clean up much nicer than streaking grime. Just be sure to be careful when using paint thinner. So we're 5.5 hours in now, it's time to do the eye lenses. I'm not entirely happy with these eye lenses, but as I said before, these units are just to fill in the ranks, and I can always come back and fix them at a later date. So now it's time to re-highlight the metallics. I'm using Iron Hand Steel for the lead belcher, and I'm just going over Necro Gold with Necro Gold wherever it's needed. And with the metallics re-highlighted, there's just a few final details. One of the biggest ones that I need to sort is the base. I'm using Corex White and Wraithbone for this, and I'll be using Villainy Ink to fill in the final details on the dreadnought. So with my time coming to an end, I really needed to get these bases sorted. I went straight over the base over the existing colours of red and the wash with dark streaking grime with a heavy dry brush of Wraithbone. Once that was sorted, I did a lighter highlight of Corex White, mainly focusing on the edges and any raised areas. This is my go-to for city urban rubble bases. It's really effective and it's really striking when it's done right. Not only is it effective, but it's also pretty easy to do. It adds a nice contrast to the dark Blood Angels that I've painted. I still need to paint the rims of the bases, but we'll get to that. So I realised I hadn't based before priming. I'll be adding just a layer of sand like my old Blood Angels and then converting them at a later date to the urban rubble bases. But to start off with, I was painting the rims of the bases in black. I did base the other minis off screen because I didn't really think it was important, but with those minis based off screen, the final timer was 7 hours, 9 minutes and 54 seconds. Is it an afternoon? It's an afternoon and an evening, but I still managed to paint it in a day. I won't be winning any golden demons with these, but that was never the intention. My intention was just to add some more Blood Angels to my existing army, something that I could be happy with on the tabletop and something that I could always come back to at a later date to add some more details to. Obviously I could have done this a lot faster if I'd left out details like the wings, the added little iconographies, the hazard stripes, little things like that. But I think it's more important to have minis that I'm actually happy with rather than just bland ones for the sake of having them. So with all that being said, let me know in the comments if you enjoyed this video, and let me know if you'd like to see more historical or sci-fi related speed paint challenges. I have plenty of historical armies ready to go, but let me know what you actually want to see. Regardless of that, I've been the Bloody Mama. You've been wonderful. Stay safe.